Well, I wanted to make a couple of side points here before I get into today's message on true freedom. The first one being that coming off of that song, you can only be you. I can only be me. This light of inclusivity and dignity that manifested in the Supreme Court decision this week. That is such a beautiful outpicturing of what's possible if we hold to these inalienable rights of life and love and liberty. That we hold inclusivity here as a deep, precious value. And when we see that the ideal, which we think should be manifest all the time, takes form across a nation, it gives hope, doesn't it? It gives hope. It gives hope that there is an awakening that's going on. It's an awakening. It's not just happening in the spiritual communities, in the temples, in the mosques, in the churches. It's happening in the minds and hearts of the people who are called to make decisions in the high courts. And I would hope and pray that this comes from a deep knowing that it isn't a popular opinion that's now manifesting, but it's a deep value that's emerging and taking form. This is how we want to live our lives. This is the change that we want to see in the world. We want to see it come from within us. Yes, that what we know to be true, this feeling of oneness and unity and love and peace and wholeness, that it can emerge from us and can take form in our lives, take form in the way we are with each other, take form in our laws of our land and the way we are with others. So I'm celebrating with our brothers and sisters across the nation who have had to live with this cloud of oppression, I guess you would say. So that's that. And then also, I want to say a little bit more about the Wednesday night class, which I'm very excited to be sharing with you starting this Wednesday night. Last week I said I was going to do this, and I want to let you know it wasn't just a flash in the pan, something that just came from how deeply touched I was, and we all were, from what happened in South Carolina, and the response that came from the people who had such deep faith and such a connection to God that they were able to come forth and to offer forgiveness to this perpetrator. Speaking of how do you get to that place, it doesn't happen by just dipping our toe in our teachings. It comes from immersion. It comes from just soaking in these teachings, of doing the work over and over and over again, returning to source, returning to who we are, shining the light of consciousness upon that which is lasting, that which is eternal. It doesn't come from an arm's length relationship with the teachings. So I really wanted to bring this Wednesday night experience because I want for us to at least have something here beyond whatever spiritual practice you have that may be ongoing and maybe a daily practice of prayer and meditation. I wanted to have something that we could share together because there's great power. Those of you that have attended retreats and satsangs and things of that nature, you found that when people pray together and meditate together, there is a combined power that is greater than the sum of the parts. There is something that changes in the consciousness of the space that you can tap into. And I see us creating that on Wednesday nights here. So the way that will look is I'll bring some kind of a teaching to start, and it'll be very brief, maybe a 10-minute discussion or talk by me. And then we will meditate upon that. And I'm going to start with the non-dual teachings of Jesus. Jesus is really, a Western non-dual teacher. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people kind of got a hold of his teachings and made it into something else. But if you read the book of John from a mystical perspective, and all those I am statements in there, you realize that Jesus was pointing to the eternal self. He was talking about the kingdom of God and the oneness, that we are all one with this love, this light. The light that enlightens every man and woman coming into the world is what Jesus was teaching. He was a non-dual teacher. It wasn't God and us. It it was the oneness. We are part of the oneness. We are part of the unity. We are part of the love that is the divine. So we're going to start with some of those statements, some of those teachings, and then we'll use those as catalysts and focal points for our meditation and contemplation. And I think it's going to be quite wonderful. So I commend it to you. We'll see what happens. But we're going to start out here in the sanctuary. I think in the beginning we'll have a lot of people. So we'll start in here, and then we'll see what the appropriate space is as we go forward. And we may even morph it into a meditation and then an afterward sort of group discussion, because sometimes people like to talk about their experiences while they're in meditation, and we can share that and be inspired by the collective sharing as well. So good. So that's that. And then today we're going to talk about true freedom, but we're out of time. So thanks for coming. Meeting will start in half an hour. Just kidding. I want to talk about true freedom today. We of course we celebrate the Declaration of Independence, the birth of a nation, July 4th of every year, and we are very familiar with the story around this revolution when people are under an oppressive government or king, and there's reigning supreme over your rights, and there's a constriction of how you can vote in free elections and buy land and live where you want to live. And we know that freedom, that kind of freedom, we're familiar with how important that is, and we enjoy that in this country. And the genesis of that was a very bloody, long battle and war. And I'm here to tell you that spiritual freedom does not involve that kind of a war. Although there's a part of you that may feel like it is a battle. And as it was for the people who signed the Declaration of Independence, those who gathered and declared this, knew that they were stepping across a line, weren't they? They knew that they were leaving the safe zone, yes? And they knew that in making this decision to claim these inalienable rights of liberty, the pursuit of happiness, that even though they felt so deeply, probably even spiritually grounded in these rights, and that every one of them should have this right, and every man and woman should enjoy this right, even though I'm sure they were very grounded in that, and there was an unshakable belief in those values, they also knew that in stepping across that line and making that declaration, they were declaring war. They were putting their lives at risk. They were putting the lives of their family and friends and many men and women's lives at risk, and their fortunes at risk, and many of them lost their fortunes in this process. So there had to be sufficient motivation for them to make this declaration. And it's the same for us, We live lives, as Emerson said, was it Emerson or Thoreau? I don't know, one of those transcendentalists, of quiet desperation. Oftentimes we live a very contracted or constricted life. It's a life that says all these conditions need to be met, and then I'll be happy. We are under an oppressive set of beliefs and positions and attitudes when this sense of wholeness and freedom and love and peace and joy and all these things which are the fruits of the Spirit, when we, despite the fact that we hear they're freely given to us without condition, we then go out and create conditions that all need to be met in order for us to feel this, in order to know this. And the spiritual life is really about declaring our independence from circumstances, conditions, people, to know that they cannot stand in the way of this kind of freedom that we're really, really, really already given. These inalienable rights. See, the Declaration of Independence wasn't claiming rights to be given to them. They were claiming rights that they already had that were being oppressed. See, there's a difference. You and I already have this freedom. Spiritually, we are free. We are created free. All men created equal, right? Now, there's another side story there, that when they wrote that Declaration of Independence and they said all men are created equal, they even knew at the time that that wasn't even true, even the way they were living their lives, right? Because there were people that were in slavery, so forth. They were setting an intention, the evolution of which took the light of consciousness to break through. And I remember Barack Obama saying that, when he could have been a servant in one of their Declaration of Independence signers' home, at the time. And now he's in the highest place in the land upholding the Constitution. Change can happen. Evolution happens. This gives us great hope, yes? And the same for us. You may have been on the spiritual path forever, right? How many people have been on the spiritual path for a long time? Yes, yes. And we say, where does it end? When am I going to get it? When am I going to wake up? Yeah? Yeah? You ever say that? Yeah. When am I going to wake up? When am I going to get it? And the good news is that you're already awake. I'm here to tell you. You're already awake. It can be no other way. You are a child of God. You are the true self. And what's happened is there's just been a cloud that is in front of your eyes, in front of your spiritual eyes. So you don't realize what you are. And that the work that we have isn't to get God to give us more sense of our beingness. It's for us, for me, to stop putting clouds in front of this reality, this clarity that knows that I'm already this. I'm already this. This life that's eternal. It's not going to come. They're not going to sign some proclamation someday when you come to church and go, hey, you did it. You finally earned the right to be free and to be your true self. We don't have that kind of a membership class here. Sorry. No one's going to give you that little piece of paper because it's already been done. It would be, what's the word? Thank you. Redundant. It would be redundant. It would be like you would be getting something only to tell you that maybe you forgot that you got this freedom. Yes? You just forgot. That's all. You just forgot. Even when you were a little baby, you were freer than you are now. In fact, you've lost freedom along the way because we began identifying with this, the body. When you're a baby, you see babies, they have no sense of that they're this separate body. They're just one with their whole everything. They're just everything, and it's all good. And later in life, someone, their mom or dad or says, they look in the mirror and they go, "That's Bobby. See that image in the mirror there? That's Bobby." Suddenly this identification, which was completely non-separate, now becomes this. This is Bobby. So we do that to our children. We have to do that to each other. If we're going to live in this world, we have to say, we have to have some sense of what's mine is mine, and and sharing and all that stuff. But in the process of doing that, oftentimes we end up building this isolating sense of self that causes us to feel suffering. And the suffering that we get is so much because I'm feeling isolated from that which is always true. It's this connection with life and love and wholeness and peace, and it's not confined by my body. It's not confined by my circumstances. So we're already free. We're already free. And I want to share this story with you, and it's about a freedom fighter, I guess you would say, who's always trying to help people be free. But in this case, he works with a parrot. So bear with me. This is a story that's shared by Osho, a spiritual teacher. He says, once a man, a staunch fighter for freedom, was traveling in the mountains. And in the course of his travel, he halted a caravan to spend the night. He found a parrot in a golden cage, continually repeating, "Freedom, freedom, It was located in such a place that the word freedom uttered by the parrot echoed all over the valleys. And the man took pity on the parrot and thought, I have seen so many parrots, but not one like this that shout for freedom the whole day. So the man hence waited until midnight and tiptoed to the cage and opened its door. He told the parrot, you are free to go. Nobody is watching. Fly out now and enjoy your freedom in the vast expanse of the sky. However, much to the surprise of the man, the parrot still clung to the bars of the cage, calling out like before, freedom, freedom, freedom. Oh, wait, I got the wrong voice. Freedom, freedom. And the man volunteered to take the bird out of the cage and free it. Hence, he tried to take the bird in his hands. But the bird clung to the bars of the cage more tightly and shouted for freedom. The man whispered in haste, what's happened? Why are you not flying out? I am only trying to help you. The bird but started pecking at his hand and hurt him. And the man, on the other hand, was adamant to free it. He hence managed to pull the bird out of the cage and released it into the sky. And he felt this deep sense of satisfaction, though his hand was hurt. But the next morning when he woke up and he heard the bird calling out, freedom, freedom, he thought that the bird surely must be perched high on a great tree or calling out this feeling, this true feeling of freedom. But he was shocked to find the bird back in the cage. Door wide open, calling out for freedom like before. Freedom, freedom. What's the moral of the story, you say? Well, you can take this story a number of ways, and people who were going out of the service this morning gave me another interpretation of the story. But here's one that works for me and works for the message of today. Is that the spiritual masters of all times, all of the great teachers, Jesus, Buddha, all the sages and saints of all times, have pointed to this freedom, have pointed to the truth, have shown us the way, have let us know. And we cling. We cling to the cage. We cling to the cage of our own preferences. I cling to the cage of my own preferences. I have my list of things that I think need to be in place in order for me to be free. I set myself up to be imprisoned. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because if you believe something, and it becomes your reality, then the universe is glad to oblige. If you say, she must be this way, he must be this way, life must be this way, whatever your preferences are, whatever your argument with reality is, yes, then the universe will give that back to you. In other words, I will not be happy. I will not feel love if I have conditions that are not being met, and I have set those conditions down. I have to declare independence. I have to declare my own freedom. I have to investigate this part of me that has no conditions. That's what spiritual awakening is discovering this part of you that really can just observe life and be untouched. There's a part of you, that's already whole. There's a part of you that's not sad. There's a part of you that's not disappointed. There's a part of you that's just fine. That's not sitting back judging you or your life or your friends or your family or any part of this human experience. There's a part of you that's quite well settled, thank you. And that's the part of us that is behind the veil of our awakening, of understanding. And that's why we do our spiritual practice, so that we can open ourselves up to recognize that while all of this stuff is happening out here, and it's all in front of the true self. It's all happening out here. It's all in front of. And whatever is behind everything that's happening out here, wouldn't you know, must be the greater, yes? Whatever is observing all of this must be the greater. So we choose the lesser or the greater? The greater is insight. The greater is awareness. The greater is the light of consciousness. The greater is untouched by the ups and downs of life. And that's what this journey is about. That's when Jesus said, when he was talking about the kingdom of God, he was talking about this spacious awareness where you are free, where I'm free. And every spiritual teacher since has said it's now. Because if it's you, being more essentially you than anything else, it can be no separation from you in time or in space. Yes? It's not even when you meditate. It's not after you meditate that it will come into being. It's already here. We meditate only because hopefully we're tricking the ego to kind of take a back seat, to kind of settle down, so that all these appearances of life that portend to be us and reality in our life are seen as just all part of the passing show. Like when the circus comes into town, and they come in and they have all these amazing tricks and the sleight of hand and the magic and the animals and the danger and the flying trapeze and all this stuff. And you go, and there you stand. You're standing there, and you're watching everything happen. And you're just amazed, and you're just wow, and woo, whoo, and your senses are all engaged. And while you're watching this, it's a show. It's just a show. And sure enough, if you waited a few days, they would start putting the animals back in the cages, and all the people would get in their trucks, and they'd close the tents up and put it on the back of a flatbed truck, and they would drive away. And there you are. You're still there. You watched it. You watched it come. You enjoyed the show. You watched it go. But there you are. Still the same being. That's what life is inviting us into. This is what spiritual practice is. To recognize all this stuff that's coming and it's going. And it's coming and it's going. Who's watching this? Who's the observer in this whole thing? Who's the aware one? That's the self. That's the true self. And what's so really marvelous is that a lot of people denigrate the fact that we have a body, like, oh, the body, that's bad, or that's inferior, and I'm a spiritual being, and my body is, I wish I didn't have a body, because then I could just feel free to float in the spiritual realm. We don't recognize that the body can be honored, because in the body, we can do these practices. That's why we're here in a body, so we can reflect upon this that I'm talking about. Because in the body, you can sit, you can do meditation, and you can be conscious of consciousness. Do you know this? To be conscious of consciousness. You can be aware that you're aware. Animals don't do this, as far as we know. We don't see donkeys meditating, etc., and trying to contemplate their true nature. Maybe they're better off. They don't know that there's anything other than whatever it is. But you and I know that there is something deeper to our nature, and so we do these practices so our body can be useful if we use it to wake up with. Yes? Otherwise, as my spiritual teacher, who I frequently listen to, says, that the body then, otherwise, is just like a pair of pajamas. Something just to sleep in. Not recognizing it's a potential to awaken us. So often in spiritual work, there's this sense that, we say you're not a body, you're a spirit, and so then there's this tendency to feel like the body is in the way. But if we see that everything that is created, all manifestation is a manifestation of the consciousness, of the one presence, the one power, including the body, then it all can be used for the awakening process. It all can serve as a vehicle for the awakening. And so that's what we're here for, that there is no obstacle to our freedom other than our imagination, believing that there is some obstacle to our awakening. And how are we doing on time? Oh, well, we have a little time. So I want to share this with you. Let me just close, because if we get out here a little early today, it would be a good thing, actually, for all of us who have a meeting. Let me share this poem that Linda Kerr shared with me after last week's message. She's a wonderful poet, and it speaks to this idea of freedom. And this will be like our closing prayer and meditation, so if you want to just take this in, and I'll read these words, and then we'll have a little closing experience together. It's called Emissaries of Light. Unseen hands unfolding veiled layers to reveal the essence of our lives. We are beloved entities of perfection. This, the magnificence of our truth, flowing through the veins in our souls. The solidness gives way to freedom's light. Rocks in the stream divert the water's path, but the stream surges on, flowing freely. Around all obstacles to its source, traveling this labyrinth to the light, all hearts converge on each other, emerging with grace into completeness. Beauty forms from our longing into the sacred path of the journey, where we walk this land together. The way of God's love becomes clear. Knowing we are entrusted emissaries, sharing our freedom and joy as one. And so we just recognize in these teachings this inward path. We recognize that we are already standing as free souls, and that it's up to us to experience this freedom. It's up to us to remove the scales from our eyes, to remove the conditions that would portend to stand in the way of us feeling this freedom, feeling this light, love, wholeness, this sense of well-being. We give thanks to the Spirit that is constantly prompting us, constantly evoking from us, and encouraging us to emerge from this clouded understanding into the light of knowing, into the light of our being. We have these inalienable rights, and they are self-evident if we look deeply at the self that stands as pure awareness, pure consciousness, that watches the passing show and is unmoved, not limited, not obstructed, not delayed. We are the eternal beings that we might have hoped to become someday. The grace that we would pray for has already been given. And it is not only our right, but it is our ability to awaken to this right here, right now. To enjoy this freedom of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, actually the realization of happiness. We are grateful for all the teachings of the teachers that continually point us in this direction, invite us to follow in the way that leads to living in the land that is flowing with love and life and freedom and joy. May we follow. May we listen. And may we see the truth. Thank you, God. Amen. Thank you. What I value about Unity of Santa Barbara, I love our mission statement, helping people to realize and express their divine nature. That is what Unity of Santa Barbara does for me. It helps me to do just that. I'm doing this in every area of my life. I'm growing in wisdom and in spirituality all the time. Many people are benefiting from this, and me most of all. I'm getting a new understanding of what it means to be a human and a spiritual being. And so we're grateful for these teachings. We're grateful for our teachers, and we're grateful for all of you who make this transformation possible.